Joining us today to take part in AeroTime's Women in Aviation campaign is Bharti Singh. Bharti is a certified IATA trainer, aviation research scholar, and a National Aviation Council member at the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, also known as WICI. Bharti's aviation career started back 2012. However, what she expected to be an ordinary pilot career turned out to be an exciting career in airline management. She is undoubtedly a shining example and a role model to young people aspiring to pursue their career in the aviation industry. And on top of all this, she is studying for a PhD in management, and she finds time to share her career experience and expertise with students at the University of Petroleum and Energy Studies in Delhi, India. Bharti, thank you for joining us here at AeroTime.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for a brief introduction. It was really overwhelming. Yes, like you said, I had really very challenging and exciting career. I wanted to pursue my career to be a pilot initially when I was pursuing my graduation like a normal, ordinary kid. But eventually, when I entered into the aviation industry and I could explore a lot of verticals where I can master into. And there comes the operation part of the flight and airline commercials, which was something which struck to me, and I was really happy that I could get guidance from my mentors at that point of time, and I could really interested to join MBA in aviation management and explore the operations airline commercial parts.
Bharti, I want to come back to that time in 2012 where initially your interests were set on pursuing a commercial pilot's career after your graduation. However, you went on to pursue that MBA in aviation management, which really changed the trajectory of your career. Why was that shift so important for you?
I always have plan A and plan B in my life. So when I was pursuing my graduation, of course, I do not, my parents wanted me to do an engineering degree. And I always insisted to have my inclination was toward aviation to join or to be a commercial pilot. And of course, at the same point of time, I wanted to have plan B for myself. So, and I went to a lot of articles and I did a lot of research. I was very young at that point of time, but yes, I got few mentors who were helping me at that point, and I can really count on them. And they said, why don't you check for airlines which are into business? Why don't you go to the management side? Yes, you do have an options of becoming a commercial pilot. Why don't you go for a plan B also? So eventually I applied for a CPL license, but at the end of the day, it did not turn out because we had 3 siblings and my parents wanted to educate, and it's a very expensive license, I must say. And similarly, pursuing an MBA degree is also an expensive certification or a degree to call overall. But again, my inclination towards commercial and airline commercial came when I did a lot of research and when I get a lot of guidance from my mentor. And therefore, my parents also said that you should go for plan B. And eventually, due to a lot of persuasion from my friends, colleagues, and my mentors, I wanted to see the airline, and I wanted to study about airline commercial more than CPL. So I think the role of my surrounding played a very high amount of impact in deciding my career into airline commercials. And of course, the research which I have done eventually had made me decide to go ahead for airline commercials.
Something you talked to us about was your work with the national carrier. You worked in flight dispatch for 1.5 years. And in that time, you became very interested in technical and flight operation aspects of aviation. I mean, why was this side of aviation so interesting for you?
Let me take you back to year 2012 when I joined a master's in aviation management, and I have graduated in bachelor's degree, so I have general management degree. I did not have any technical experience prior, or neither do I have a BTech degree or an engineering degree or an aircraft AME engineering degree to go ahead in the technicality. Whereas I would not take the name, but from the Air India, he was the vice president of operations, and I really performed well in my internship. So actually, I was interning with the company, national carrier Air India, and I was into flight operations, and they hired 14 interns from UPES Dehradun, and I was one of them. And when I was interning with the airline, I understood, and during that period, I studied a lot of technical knowledge about ramp operation, baggage handling systems, load control, cargo operations, how the flight plan is prepared, what is weather report, and the roles of regulators in terms of your flight operations and preparing a flight plan. The second stage was of licensing of flight dispatcher, where the interns have to perform. If they have a good knowledge when they have performed in the industry, they would be going for licensing. So there I explored, and I worked really hard, because there were a lot of friends of mine who were already an AME. They were already an engineer, and I did not have that background. But I really wanted to. I was the only lady who, apart from batch of 60 students, and a batch of 14 students who got selected as an intern with the flight dispatch office, and I scored. There was a criteria that you need to score 80% in the final evaluation process of your intern, and the student will then be finally shortlisted as a load master or flight plan executive. And then after the end of the intern, I successfully completed my evaluation, and I got 97%. And then I was sent for licensing to Hyderabad for Airbus 320, 319, and 321 aircrafts, where the licensing period was for 3 months, where I went for the entire training of how the flight configuration works, how the load and trim has to be balanced out, starting from manual training to the physical training of load and trim sheet was being taught. And then eventually I was trained on Emirates CLC licensing also over that 1.5 years of period. And there I understood how interesting the field is all about. It is not about customer service or only flying a vehicle. It's also about how the operation takes place. Because yes, I do agree, pilot holds a very huge amount of responsibility of taking care of passenger on board, and their lives matter, of course. But at the end of the day, an operation, people from the back end operation team, they're handling the entire fleet. Whereas a pilot handle the entire aircrafts. So of course they both are equally responsible to operate the successful airline. So I thought, and that is where was the turning point for my career to come back and into the operation field and to know more about it. And there where my curiosity was keep on rising and rising. I did not stop then.
You also mentioned earlier, you mentioned how your mentors are so important in, guiding the trajectory of your career. And you also speak constantly about training and engaging young students to really expand their perception of the industry. And you mentioned that this experience changed your life. And what was so important about that? And today, what is the message that you're trying to share with young aviators about the aviation industry and the opportunities in the industry?
Yes, I always, I think when we were earlier talking with you, I have already mentioned about how mentoring is very, very important for the students, especially the young professionals who are there in the field. Not everybody get that opportunity to understand the various verticals of the industry. And especially when we talk about aviation, I'm sure there are a lot of verticals where students do not have knowledge about. So initially, like I said, we were restricted to either to have a degree, either to have a CPL license or to have a certified cabin crew or to be a AME engineer. But other than that, there are a lot of areas, there are a lot of skills which is required where we wanted to, where students should know. Second thing which I wanted to say, aviation skill is not easy. Like if somebody wants to become a certified flight dispatcher, he needs to spend almost like $4,000, $5,000 to become a certified flight dispatcher. So it does not, it's the skill which is required or the training which is behind to become a successful aviation. It comes with a lot of training, and the training cost is a little high. I'm sure in India it is, of course, it's high, and a lot of IATA courses which are running, it's not as cheap, or it is not as affordable for the students to to come across and of course to get trained. So we have to work in such a business model where we can incline or where we can integrate, like I told in the earlier talk, that we should be having some amalgamation between the industry and the academics, where students are benefited at the end of the day, because the training cost is really, really high, and some student might not afford it because of financial constraint. This is one of the challenges which initially I also faced, but of course, because of not everybody has a scholarship, or not everybody is a bright student, everybody needs an opportunity to perform at the end of the day. So I feel there should be a business model where the aviation industry should have some of a partnership or alliance with the academic teams to deliver the skill set which is required for the young professional at the end of the day. And that is where the young students or the young professional who aspire to become a part of aviation industry, they could see there are various verticals which are aligned. Not only to become a pilot, they should have options to choose from. Like in our case, I was not having, I eventually, when I entered the industry, I could see, but if I had a knowledge of technical operations or flight operation, flight dispatch, I could have a clear vision. But of course, we should create such environment where students have options to choose from, and these technical subjects and training should become affordable, and this can only become when there is a proper partnership or MOU between the industry and the academic to perform or to deliver a well structured courses or training plans for the students or the young professional at the end of the day. That is what I come across.
You've mentioned that, people coming into the industry need to have those options, of the different opportunities that can be found in the industry. But you've also spoken about the need for them to develop a wider skill set of the different expertise that can be found in aviation. Why is this issue so important for you and for the industry?
The issue is important because at the end of the day, whatever I'm teaching to the student or whatever we are training at the level, in the graduation level or at the master's level, that may not be as relevant to the industry what it is going on. And to be very honest, Michael, whatever I studied in my master's degree, I think I could only use up to 20 to 30%, and remaining 80% knowledge I have gained out when I joined the internship or when I joined the organization. So 80% gaps still exist in the academics model till now. Yes, we do teach students with the basic understanding of airline models or what are the aircraft structural components and various other fundamental concepts. But at the end of the day, when these students, the knowledge gap is huge. You can see 20% of knowledge I got it from the academics, remaining 80% I got to know when I actually went for my internship or when I went for my final placements or a job. So you can see these gaps should be met. This gap should be identified. I think I cannot do it all alone. There have to be people or your person who understand the importance of training, skill development, career mentoring. These terms are very broad, but again, I would add up, these are very important for young professionals and young students, because at the end of the day, for me, it's very important for them to have options. And I really, my aspiration, if you ask me, I always want to have where students out once they graduate, they should have that knowledge gap should be 50-50%, where they know say 50-60% in their university or in their training centers, and remaining 40%, of course, they can be well trained when they're on job or when they are in doing their internship. So this huge gap, knowledge gap, has to be understood by the experts or the stakeholders, and has to be met at the end of the day.
And just talking about that gap in knowledge and still on the options that need to be provided to people entering the industry, you yourself, you're involved in a number of volunteering and educational projects for young people who are looking to start their careers in the aviation industry. Could you talk about the work that you do, and across a wider industry, what resources today need to be dedicated to support that awareness, that exposure and education of young people entering the industry?
Thank you for asking that question, Michael. Yes, we are working very, very effectively. Of course, we are working for non-profit organization, and there is one which I'm working in the university level. I have successfully implemented two curriculum which has aligned with the industry, and one is one course which is from IATA itself, where the IATA has designed the entire curriculum model, which is not as traditionally what you have to study economics, marketing. These economics and marketing subjects are relevantly attached how aviation economics work, how airport economics works, how aviation marketing works. So we have designed the curriculum, and I think it took a lot of time for me. It took almost 2.5 years to bring on and to develop that entire curriculum for the students at UPES, and currently students from masters and bachelors who are pursuing their aviation degree from UPS, they also can see what are the industry relevant skills required to at the end of the day. And we also, there is a second model which I have introduced. When students are when students are in their final semester of completing their degree, we also take them for their practical training, which is on job training. We have allied partnership with various airports, airlines, where we take students in batch wise for their practical orientation, which is required before they enter to the industry. So these two models we have successfully integrated at the university level, and this is something which I'm doing at my work. Second aspect, which I'm working with Wiki, Women National Aviation Council, and if you have heard about Aerospace Aviation Skill Sector Council and Logistics Skill Sector Council, these skill sector councils are government-funded NGOs, and their objective is to create skilled laborers and job opportunities for them at the end of the day, and to create training modules, to create awareness, to mentor them. And there are people who are not young. The students whom I'm mentoring these days, they are already people who are well established in the aviation industry. They are at senior manager positions, they are at manager positions. Some of them are working in ramp operations. They want to expand. For example, like yesterday I was speaking to one of the person. He is working with ramp, he's a ramp supervisor, and he talked to me. He participated in one of the workshop which we conducted last this Saturday with Wiki, National Aviation Council, and he wanted to have a shift in his career, because at the end of the day he does not wanted to restrict himself in only in ramp area, or to be a ramp supervisor. He wanted to go into the airline commercial, or he talked about, I wanted to be a marketing. I have done my degree in MBA in marketing, and I'm still stuck as a ramp supervisor. I want to expand into airport marketing, and I want to do that. So that is where Wiki play a very important role, and where we educate them. There are a lot of experts. There is Nandini, who is an airport director at Jaipur Airport. She is mentoring him about what are the different aspects of airport marketing, what are the responsibilities and roles and skills are required. These workshops, we are not only mentoring the young professionals, but at the end of the day, we are also touchdowning to those personals or already expert professionals who are in the aviation, and they want to upscale their career, or their what do you say, their money and salary at the end of the day. And this is how we are currently working on both aspects. One, where we are working purely as a non-funded organization, and we are our major objective here is to collect all the aviation expert women on board, and we go together every week. We mentor them for 4 hours, even though if it is a Saturday or a Sunday. We all sit across and talk out to these peoples and mentor them. And at the end, and then the second side, we are working for the industry. Nandini is doing a very good job in the airport expansion, terminal expansion for Tier 2 airport. There is a project called Regional Connectivity Scheme, where Indian government has went for privatization, public-private partnership between the Tier 3 airports, where we wanted to expand these smaller airports in India to increase the regional connectivity, trade opportunities. So Nandini is working very hard for that, and we all are working and contributing her to develop these connectivities in and across all the airports of India. So this is how our contribution is toward the aviation industry, Michael.
I'm going to take us on a tangent here, and I want to come back to something you mentioned earlier about, facing those challenges, the challenges that young people face when they enter the industry. At any point in your career, did you encounter any challenges because you were a female professional in the industry?
Yes, there was a lot of challenges, of course, Michael. At the beginning of the session, when I was entering into the aviation industry, of course, there are a lot of female people who are working, but at the end of the day, we need to work more hard comparing to a female person, and female or the other male professionals. The hurdle which I basically faced was something which is related to upscaling my salary, and if I wanted to become a flight operation, and when I wanted to become a turnaround coordinator, they said a female cannot go on the ramp and work in a day shift or a night shift. That is something which is restricted in India, especially when a female wants to work in the ramp area or want to become a certified turnaround coordinator. So yes, those challenges initially was there. That's the reason where I shifted from Air India to Indigo Airlines and wanted to become a safety auditor. And I licensed for, and I got trained as an auditor, and then I shifted my career to safety auditor. Yes, the upscaling part is very little bit something which changing of people mindset is something which which was a challenge overall. And secondly, salary constraint. It's something which a female can work with a lesser salary comparing to a male professional or a male colleague of mine. So that is where I faced challenges. But again, we these challenges were nothing which made me stop, or which played a very key very important role in my life. But of course, it still exists, and we need, I do not know how to address that and change the perspective of people's mind. But yes, we do face these challenges, and young professional or young female on aviation experts who are entering the industry, even though they are also facing the options. And there was one of my female students. She was asked to join an aviation research firm. Instead of, she wanted to work as a ramp supervisor, or she wanted to work as a turnaround coordinator. Just because she was a female, they said that you cannot, a girl cannot handle a stressful job at an airport, or be at a tarmac or be at a ramp. You are fit for working at an office where you have air conditioning and do a research or a consulting job. So this is what a gap or a challenge in the industry which I have identified. And out of there are 126 airports in India, and there are only 5 female who are an airport director at present. So you can see the challenge, how women has to work really hard to become an airport director or a terminal manager at the end of the day.
What more do you want to see happening in the next 10 years with regards to furthering and encouraging women in the industry?
My only thing here is to not stop, because these challenges are temporary. These challenges are something which should not demotivate the young professionals, especially who are you women. And people are scared because of the challenges in the aviation industry. Of course, women are that is the only reason I could not have a lot of female friends in my workplace, because I have a lot of males who are working around in the aviation. And that's where I tell my female students. So I have a batch of 60 students, and out of 60 students, there are only 5 female who have joined aviation management degree. So I could see there's a huge gap where females are not comfortable working in the aviation domain. So yes, I am working. I'm regularly. I'm telling them the examples. There are a lot of other wiki members and women council members who are inspiring us, and I bring them on board. I arranged few guest lectures with them to motivate my female students or female young professionals to understand the diversity of the aviation, because we need them, because they are well organized, they have all amount of skills required, but it's only the gap between the students and the industry adapting. A female working on the technical areas or the ramp areas is where these challenges comes. And I always tell my female students to be more courageous, be more bold, and be more upfront, and keep your statement and keep your head high, so that if even though there are challenges, you need to face them, you need to overcome them. And at the end of the day, I have been into academics for 3.5 years. I still get calls from my students who, and especially female students, those who are working, that they're really doing good. And it makes me so proud, Michael, that I feel like, of course, out of 10 mentoring students, hardly 5 or 4 girls who are really doing well. And I'm really happy that some word of wisdoms and some word of talk and inspiration is keeping their head high, and they are still working and struggling hard comparing to a male student who are there in the aviation field. So that is what is something which is making me happy at the end of the day, because a student calling me and saying me that, ma'am, thank you for letting me know about all these things, and how overwhelming it's for me, even though a salary which is crediting to my account, that doesn't, at the end of the day, that makes happy. But of course, when you get a lot of feedbacks from students, and when they are doing good, you feel proud at the end of the day. That is something I feel good about my job.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I want to touch on something about your career, and just looking at how it's developed. How do you feel about the decision you made to pursue airline management over pursuing a commercial pilot's career, a pilot license?
Yes, of course, there was something where I was fixed initially, like I want to be a CPL holder, I want to be a commercial pilot holder. But yes, out of all the disparities and all the hurdles, I was not happy initially, of course, but that was the turning point. I tell you and tell all of my students, and that is something where I came across to the knowledge of airline commercials, MRO operations, your revenue management, network planning, airline network planning. These are my core strengths. This is something which I teach students, and none of my students were having idea about all these domains and verticals. And at the end of the day, I feel very, very happy, Michael, that I could impart. I'm not a very expert in network planning. I'm not a vice president of some airlines, but at least I have understood how the industry works and what are the options. I can tell my students or make them aware. And of course, a CPL pilot holder is of course a pilot who is running an aircraft. He is also a person who has a lot of responsibility, and people inspire, and he inspired a lot of young guys and young students. But of course, this decision took a very, very high turn in my life, where also I wanted to do my doctorate and I wanted to do my PhD. Of course, the turning point of my career was a significant role, and I will not like to change anything of my decision, and I do not regret. I like I said in my previous talk, I do not regret going back and changing anything. Yes, I'm really happy of what I'm doing, and I really want to do the same thing. And I want, at the end of the day, when I will be 60 and when I'm growing old, and I want to retire and get calls from my students who have taught them, and they would call me, and that will be something which is everyday motivation to wake up, and something contribution which I have done for the aviation industry.
You've mentioned a number of fascinating aspects, especially about the sectors of the industry that you've pursued. And today, as the industry embraces a period of recovery from the pandemic, what advice would you give to young people looking to enter the industry today?
Yes, this is something which Vicky is also focused on these days. Because of COVID, the industry has impacted hugely. Not only aviation, of course, tourism sector is also impacted hugely. Of course, the curiosity and the situation of panic is there in the industry, and a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues have lost their job in the aviation industry, who are from the aviation industry. I know quite few pilots, they have also lost their jobs because the airline was not making revenue. So I felt bad, but again, right now Vicky has been working very continuously on creating a lot of positive environment, and by calling on experts, and at the end of the day, we are also identifying jobs and releasing in our portals for these people who have lost their job in the COVID time. So we are doing that along with the ministry. We are working with the ministry, also Ministry of Civil Aviation in India. We are working with them to create internship opportunities from young professionals. So We have Vicky, president, and in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, we have created a lot of, aligned with the industry to create non-paid internship jobs for the young professionals to come up, and before they join their internship, we are conducting 2 weeks of training for these interns. So we are a member of 15 Wiki members. We are training them a week prior before they join their on-job training or their internship with the company. So this is what we are working on currently. And with the universities, of course, universities are also the UPS. When we talk about aviation universities, these are also working very, very hard with us and various other university to conduct a lot of positive environment. We go every states, from Delhi to Hyderabad, to talk to students, to talk to group of students, especially who have completed their 12th or graduation. We to motivate them and just to keep a little tight. The situation is a little difficult for us, to every one of us who are working, but this is something which is temporary, and we are bringing a lot of experts in the airport domain who are talking about solutions, not problems. So there are people from the industry expert, ministry expert, who are talking about solutions, like in near future, if certain pandemic situation happen, how industry is going to take care of about maintaining their liquidity, their precautions, their medical health standards, and everything. So in this way, we are continuously working, Michael, and of course, we have placed almost 56 students as of now. Already, those who have lost their jobs, and currently we are training 112 interns on all Saturday and Sunday. We are working on training the on-job interns and placing them in the industry, so that they also have that connection with the industry and they do not feel that we are losing. And Indigo has successfully partners with us, because they have inducted more 56 aircrafts and going to expand international connections. So we are working very hard for that, so that we can get some jobs for our students. We can create some internships and learning for our students who have been affected in the COVID situation.
Well, Bharti, I'd like to say thank you for joining AeroTime today and for sharing your story and the exciting work that you're doing to support, mentor, and train people in the industry.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having us.
And that brings us to the end of this AeroTime interview, but stay tuned for more coming soon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Jonga, and you've been watching AeroTime. Goodbye.